We had a weekend light show throughout much of the Central Valley of California. I'm ABC 10 Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods in the capital city of Sacramento. And it's not something that we normally see in the summer, especially for valley locations. This particular game out there for the baseball game, it was delayed because of dangerous conditions. And we sure thank all of our viewers for sending in so many pictures and video. Look at this. Oh, wow. Look at the lightning over Modesto. You can see this, Sean submitting that in. Skies turn dark, and then it all illuminates with the lightning pulling on through. Now, this was quite an active period here. I got the radar lined up back to when this all started to get going. Late in the afternoon throughout the Central Valley, you can see that line of storms developing right there, pushing through much of the mother lode and eventually off to the east. But this was the line of storms producing not only the lightning and sports delays, but also we had some power outages to go along with it. What was causing it was yet another tropical system interaction. This used to be Hurricane Jova, but it provided enough of the moisture and stability, the high pressure ridge over to our east here, just drawing up that moisture, mostly in Southern California. That's where we saw most of the rain and the accumulated rain occurring. But there was enough instability throughout Central California to really get those lightning shows going. Also saw some great cloud formations you can see out at many of the sporting events, like I was saying. Unfortunately, we had some delays and even some postponements and rescheduled sports activities because of the dangerous conditions when thunder roars, go indoors, as well as any lightning, because it can travel up to 10 miles. That's one thing that can be particularly dangerous. You don't think that you're necessarily being affected, and then unfortunately it can travel. So over the weekend, we had in an 18-hour period about 6,000 plus lightning strikes. The location of that was mainly Central Coast through the valley and then through the foothills. But the impacts, as I mentioned, power outages, sports delays, even some rescheduled activity because of all of this. You can see the blue and the red dots. The total strikes that we saw in this particular region was over 6,000, with positive strikes 85. But then when we accumulate the negative strikes, we had over 2,000 of those. So in total, throughout the region, we had about 6,000 strikes. So it's not necessarily what we're adding up right here. It's just how many we saw in an 18-hour period was about 6,000. That's what the National Weather Service out of the Bay Area was reporting. As I mentioned, the total accumulated rain, not much. Something to talk about, though, in California, since this time of year we really haven't started to see our rainy time of the year pick up. So we saw 7/100ths of an inch for Big Bear, Barstow, about 1/100th. Mammoth Lakes, they just got rid of their snow from last season. 3/100ths of an inch of rain. You can see the green shaded area here. That's where we saw most of the rain, and we saw this little line move through the Central Valley. As far as the monitoring sites, we just didn't have too many that were able to pick up the rain. But this is what I'm talking about. Normally from July through August, even in September, we're lucky to get 1/1500ths of an inch of rain. So any rain coming in at this point in the season is really something to talk about. Our rainy season starts to pick up in November, really gaining steam December, January, February, even into March. We typically see some decent rainfall and snow for that matter as well, and then things start to taper off. So this was something of an anomaly for us to get that rain. And it really goes in line with what has been an epic water year for us. It doesn't officially close until the end of the month. So our water year in California runs from October 1st of one year and goes all the way through the following year until September 30th. This is the amount of rain that we've seen so far. We just have a couple more weeks to go here, but it's putting us well above average. Most of that coming through the December, January, and even some February storms. So decent March totals as well. Those are the months we typically see the rain. It was a La Nina year, and now we're heading into an El Nino year, which statistically favors a wetter than average Southern California, drier Pacific Northwest. That doesn't always go hand in hand, but we could have two back-to-back big water years in California, keeping us out of the drought situation. As for tonight, we're still tracking just a few isolated storms. Most of that active weather is starting to quiet down, with the instability starting to lessen here as we lose some of the daytime heating and the ability to get that lift going in the atmosphere. So as far as the forecast for tomorrow, looks like our best chance of seeing some thunderstorms will be moving its way east. into the desert Southwest and parts of Nevada. They've already been dealing with, as we were talking about, with all the flooding last week at this time with Burning Man. Just a really active period here with those thunderstorms and even some rain developing. It is the peak time of year for the hurricanes, especially for the Atlantic Basin. So we're tracking Hurricane Lee right now, winds 120 miles per hour, moving from a Category 2 up to a Category 3, expected to become a major hurricane here that we've been tracking. And here's the projected path. Category 4, it looks like overnight tonight through early tomorrow, and it will continue to move its way through the Atlantic Basin. Then it takes a pretty sharp turn up to the north as a Category 3 storm, and it looks like all indications are that that storm will indeed stay off to the east of the United States border until it gets to New England later on this week. That's something that we'll have to watch. Now, in terms of what we're expecting back on the West Coast, possibly a wetter than average outlook September 16th through the 20th. We're going to stay on the warmer side of things, but we could potentially be seeing a little bit more moisture move into the forecast. That's not necessarily going to be in our work week forecast, but something that we'll be watching because there are quite a number of low pressure systems moving in from the Pacific. It's going to be interesting to see which one finally kind of breaks down our high pressure that typically sits over us throughout the entire summer and then starts to break down as we get into October. We usually see a couple of storms here and there in September, October. They don't do a ton, but we have high pressure right now. Could be seeing some of that wet weather move our way before too long. It won't necessarily make it into the 10-day forecast, but right after that, there's a potential. Highs in the 70s tomorrow for the Sierra. We're in the 80s to near 90 down the hill. Could see a few isolated storms in the Sierra. Along the coast, it is absolutely gorgeous. Travel plans this time of year, we are benefiting from the optimal fall forecast throughout Northern California now that we're through those thunderstorms. A little bit on the warm side for afternoon highs. We're in the 90s. Normally we're about 90 degrees, but those morning lows, that is just fantastic. Our 5-day forecast, if you're headed to the mountains, in the 70s, 80s throughout the foothills, and for the coast, we're going to keep it in the 60s to right around 70. With our 10-day forecast, again, this is just ideal travel weather, as well as if you have sports activities. Highs will be in the 80s to near 90, and those overnight lows stay in the 50s.